All right, I am on with Madison in Tennessee. Madison, how's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to talking to you because you gave us a great submission here. You love talking about ideas. You said you've been with this show from the beginning.
Yes, I have.
But most interestingly, you wanted to talk about education. And you're someone, you have a couple learning disabilities, and basically you don't act like a victim. You've sort of conquered them, and now you're going ahead and getting your education and thriving at it.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. You know what? First, even though I don't want to dwell on it, what are the issues that you have?
All right. Well, I have a disability called Central Auditory Processing Disorder. Usually people just call it like CAPD. And it's basically where if people are talking to me and we're in like a really noisy room, it takes me a little bit longer to process voices and sounds. And it's not that I can't hear them, but it's that my brain just doesn't process them as quickly, and sometimes not at all. So it's kind of like being deaf, but not really. And
Okay.
then I have dyscalculia, which I cannot pronounce at all, but people will know what that is. It's basically like dyslexia for numbers.
I think you made that one up. That's not a real one, is it?
I promise it's a real one.
It's a real one. All right, so what is it?
I mean, it's just basically where you see numbers. Sometimes you can see them upside down. Like you can't count as quickly. It's just really hard for my brain to like grasp number concepts, I guess, is the best way to describe it. And so like just really holds me back in math. But I mean, other than that, I'm good.
Yeah. And then what's the third one?
ADHD, which you don't consider a disability, and I don't blame you. But apparently it is.
We talked for 1 second before we started this. I mean, I feel like everyone under 20 has ADHD. Do we have to count that
you're
one?
Right. I mean, many people do. It's just sometimes it's a little more amplified than others.
Fair enough. And I don't want to get into any trouble. I know people are going to be angry at me now if you have ADHD.
No, you're going to get emails. What does Crowder always say? You're going to get emails.
Yeah, I'm gonna get emails. So one of the things that you talked about in your submission is that you don't, even though you have these issues, you know, these learning disabilities, you don't use them in any way. They don't hold you back in any way, but yet you find yourself being put in a position where people think it either should hold you back or they almost want it to. You mentioned something about the stall in the girls' room at school.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so they always have, like every single week, they have something new up on the wall. Just social justice warrior, like 101, basically. I have to sit there and look at it while I try to pee, okay? And I see this one. And honestly, it didn't even list anything that I even have as a disability. But it did list you. Apparently, I dump my baggage on people who have a different gender identity or who have a different sexuality or just any sexual being. That's what was listed.
I am a victim, and I would appreciate it if you'd speak slower to me, because that would help.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is it good?
That's better. That's better. Yeah. I'm also actually not great with numbers, so I can match you 2 for 2.
Okay. But yeah, so that is what I have to look at, apparently. And it's just this mentality that every single person walking around on campus, there's something wrong with them and that they should be coddled and catered to for no good reason whatsoever. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. You know, I come in and I'm like, you know, I have these struggles. These are my problems. But I don't look at myself as I should be treated any differently than anybody else. And they almost don't even want to hear that. It's like for them, that's the worst possible way you could look at something like that.
Right. And, you know, it's crazy because you're the one that wants to get past these things that could potentially hold you back, and they're the ones that you want you to be identified by them.
Yes, you're exactly right. And you know, it's not necessarily just because I mean, there's some great people at my university. You know, it's just they're very nice about it and stuff, but you can tell from higher up, there's just this feeling of just victimhood. And it's like, no, I'm not a victim. I'm completely fine and I'm completely capable. Stop treating me like I'm 5 years old.
Yeah.
And it's not just for me. I mean, it's for multiple people. I mean, really, being gay is a disability now? Are you kidding me? It's crazy.
I'm a miracle worker. I mean, people should be looking at me going, "My God, he did it despite the
Yes.
handicap."
Yes,
So one of the other things you wanted to talk about was that you're from a small town in Tennessee, and sort of the amount of support for Trump during the election, and basically why that support was there. So can you tell me about that?
Well, definitely. I mean, pretty much all of Tennessee, like you're going to look at it, and except for the universities, Republican.
Right.
Which, by the way, is not like most people believe that if you grow up in a small town, you're immediately going to be a Republican because your parents are. Not true. Like I told my parents I was coming on your show, and they're like, "Oh my God, to talk about politics. Can you just shut up about it?" Like they never talked about it with me. You know, it's stuff you have to find out for your own and become your own person.
Did
And
you
so
tell them
was
that I'm
like,
challenged in some sort of way? Maybe that would have helped.
yeah, yeah. But so in our town, we had this railroad, and that's how most everybody is employed from it. And it randomly shut down one day because of coal, because 90% of what we shipped was coal. And so many people lost their jobs. And we were just devastated. And then here comes the election. You know, what is Hillary offering us? Nothing. But Trump comes in, and, you know, I mean, whether he's actually going to deliver on it is another story. But when you're sitting there and you feel hopeless and you have nothing else, and here Trump is saying, you know, we're going to get you your jobs back. Who do you think we're going to vote for? We're not idiots just sitting on Facebook looking at fake news. Like, no, it's just not true.
Do you think, has Trump done anything that you know of that actually has gotten some jobs back or is going to get some jobs back? Because that seems to be a little bit of the disconnect right now. Do you know of anything that's happening?
Unfortunately, not right now. I mean, nothing that we can see. So that kind of sucks. But it's just kind of like, still, I don't know if Hillary would have done any better. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. What's it like to be in a town? Because we hear about this all the time now. You know, these towns, like what you're saying, where the main thing usually related to coal or something like that, where the main gig goes out of business and then people have to leave the state or sell their houses or whatever. What's just like the feeling like just to be around a lot of that?
It's kind of, I don't want to, yeah, it's like we're forgotten. That's the best way to describe it. It feels as if that nobody cares about our town. Like, you know, and I actually live really close. I don't know if you ever heard about this, to the forest fires that happened in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Did you ever hear about them?
Honestly, I'm not totally sure that I did, yeah. Which probably proves your point.
I mean, it was extremely devastating. And I remember that night, there was like this whole Twitter campaign about like, why do these news channels always talk about what's going on in Washington and California, but they never touch on places like us? And, you know, people were so angry about it. And that's like one of the times that I really started to notice, like, people really don't care about, you know, little towns like ours. And, you know, we are part of America. Like, I get it. We're not, you know, the biggest thing there is, but when you feel like you're just forgotten, somebody like Trump is going to come along, and whether he be a con man or not, we're going to take it.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. So what do you want to do? What are you studying, and what are you going to be? You could definitely do something cool. That's very obvious to me.
Well, right now I actually want to be an occupational therapist, but I've honestly thought about changing my major to political science, because I'm in a political science class right now, and I really enjoy it. But it's just, what am I going to do with that degree? But you did something with it.
I'm the only one. I would love for you to do something with it. That would be awesome. So we only have a little time left, but the other thing that you wanted to talk about was free speech on campus. And obviously, yes. I talk about it all the time. You're in college. You are a freshman right now. You're politically active. You're not a victim. All the right things. What's the state of free speech like for you?
It sucks. Honestly, I feel like I could go to my campus and stand, like, you know, it's easy free speech if I want to talk about Hillary or if I want to talk about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
But if I want to get up there and say, like, yeah, maybe I did vote for Trump, and maybe I really don't hate him so far. No, they don't want to hear that. And it's, the same thing with the victim mentality over having a disability. It's a victim mentality over having a different opinion. And, I'm super big on words. Like, one day I want to be a writer. Like, that's just what I love. And because I just think that that's the most important thing. And when you start silencing just opinions that you don't like, you start to silence everything. You start to silence questions. You start to silence people who want to ask, like, why? And when you do that, like, you're not going to have a society. You're going to have a dictatorship. That's what, I mean, not a dictatorship, but that's just the free flow of ideas is literally what we're based on. Yeah. And without it, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Do you feel that, like, it's pretty obvious to me, like, on some of the social stuff like gay marriage, I can tell that that's not something that you really care about, or you probably support gay marriage or whatever else. But do you feel that, like, by living in Tennessee, you get lumped in with this idea of all these backwards people? I always go out of my way not to do that. I judge people as individuals, not as the collective, as you know. But that must be very frustrated, that if you grew up in a place with slightly different values, to be dismissed. It goes to that economic dismissal that you're talking about, actually.
Always. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And the saddest part is it would be different if, the people around me were actually bigots and, like, I was, like, the only one out. No! None of them are. Like, yes, like, I do grow up, and most of them are Christians. So most of them, if you would be like, gay marriage, they probably would say no. But at this point, like, nobody cares. It's not like they hate anybody. It's not like they feel as if they're going to go burn down their house. We don't have a KKK. It's just, it's insanity to think how we're lumped. And, like, I turn on CNN and how they talk about us as if we're stupid or we're dumb and bigots. Some of us are rednecks. Sometimes we like to blow shit up. But that does not make us all racist or bigots or anything that the left tries to put on us. Sometimes we do crazy stuff like rednecks do, but we're not anything that they try to make us out to be. Nobody's racist, and especially Islamophobia. Okay, I had a project to do for a class, and what I picked was to wear a hijab for a day. And I went out and to my local mall, and I went different places. Not a single stare. Not a single person said a word to me. And I was like, if anything, this proved more to me about how actually tolerant our town is than the complete intolerance that the left makes it out to look like. Yeah. Which is just crazy.
Well, Madison, I hear you. I think if you want it, you got a political future in front of you, but that's for you to decide. But you know what? How about this? If you talk to some of the, it'll probably be the young Republicans or conservatives, because those are the only ones that invite me down to colleges. I'd love to go speak down at your college. How about that?
I would absolutely love to have you. Northeast State, come one day, please.
All right. Well, talk to your people.
And Crowder and Christina Hoff Summers.
I will gladly do it with them. I'll convince them to do it. So talk to your people. You could try talking to the progressives and the Democrats, but they probably, well, they certainly won't have them, and they probably won't have me either. But I've loved talking to you, and good luck with everything. All right, I'm talking to Todd in Canada. And Todd, I believe you're on a boat.
I am indeed. It's a 37-foot sailboat that my boyfriend and I live on.
Nice. So you guys actually live on a boat. Out of all the people I'm talking to today, I believe you're the only boat dweller.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, we've been living aboard for a little over 4 years now, and the boat that we're currently on is the one that we've had the longest. We've had it for about 3.5 years.
Wow. And what might somebody not know about living on a boat? I mean, it's sort of a curious thing in and of itself, but I mean, are you just bouncing around all the time? Do you end up docking in one place and staying for a while, or is this really, it sounds like it's really like a whole lifestyle for you?
It's definitely a lifestyle. I have a job on land, so I work in a little town, the little town of Gibsons, British Columbia, and I work in a tertiary mental health facility. So when I'm not at work, we take the boat out and we go somewhere, usually nearby. Unless I have a string of days off, we might travel a little bit further, but. We came over from Gibsons to Nanaimo just today, and the entire time that we were coming over. It was a beautiful sail, and my boyfriend said we're going to be there on time. Don't worry about it. He kept giving me time estimates and updates, and we got the hook down well before I needed to talk to you. So
nice. So do you?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And it was a beautiful, beautiful trip. It was lovely today. The sun is out. It's fantastic.
Great, that's nice to hear. So do you have internet when you're just sailing around, or did you have to actually be docked somewhere to get internet?
No, we have internet. We have internet on the boat. We bought we bought a hub through Rogers, and that's what we use for our boat internet.
Got it. All right.
It's just a plan.
Right. So you mentioned your boyfriend. So I can put two and two together here. You are gay, but there's a little more something interesting about you, perhaps. Maybe you're over it by now, but I think that other people might find interesting. Do you see where I'm going with this?
I do see where you're going. I even anticipated as much, and it's fine. Fire away all the questions you have. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, you're trans, so I'll let you tell the story.
Sure. Where would you like me to start?
Well, tell me a little bit about when you came to that conclusion, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, I do really believe you're on a boat, because it sounds like some planes are going by, or somebody's probably on a boat next to you, I guess.
They have air, or what is it? A commuter flight that comes into seaplanes that come into Nanaimo. So you probably did hear that, yeah.
Gotcha.
Just to get back to it, I'm biologically female. I felt very different my entire adolescence, but I couldn't, and I was always more bonded with my male cousins, tended to engage in more rough and tumble play. Now, some people would say maybe I was just a tomboy, and more often than not, that tends to be the case. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria, mm-hmm. which is what I was diagnosed with, because it was persistent, and it was something that it caused me a great amount of suffering. I was okay as a kid, but once puberty set in, I guess, once puberty started and my body started to change, I had an increasingly difficult time with that emotionally. So, and I knew that transsexuals existed, but I'd only ever heard of it from the other side. So I really only knew about male to female transsexuals. I had no idea that there were also biological women who felt the way that I did and decided to take steps in order to become more male appearing to the outside world and kind of feel like they better fit into their bodies, until I met somebody who was going in that direction, and I was 21 at the time.
Mm-hmm. So you transition, and then I think what people might find interesting here is that, I don't know what the numbers are, and maybe you can let me know, but that a certain amount of women that would transition to men would then, as a man, be interested romantically or sexually in women, mm-hmm. But you're romantically and sexually attracted to men, thus you have a boyfriend. So it's like, right. It's a many layered thing that it's hard for people to really grasp holistically if you're not living it.
True. And the thing that people get tripped up on a lot, I find, is they will they'll get gender identity and sexual orientation either confused, or they'll mash them up together when they're completely separate. So the way that I tend to explain it to folks is gender identity is who you feel you are, and sexual orientation is who you like to get naked with.
Right. Okay. And I think we now understand the situation. So let's move on a little bit to some broader stuff, because you had some really interesting things that you wanted to talk about. You lived in San Francisco during the height of the AIDS crisis, and one of the things you wanted to talk about was how you've seen the gay community change. And I've talked about this a little bit as well, not for the first part of that, but the latter part in what I'm seeing now with the gay community changing. But can you talk about how you think it's changed from the 90s?
Sure. Well, in the 90s, as you just mentioned, we were in the height of the AIDS crisis. Uh, there was a couple of gay rags that would come out in San Francisco every week, and there would be 2 to 3 pages of obituaries in these weekly publications every week. So, while it wasn't the 70s or the 60s or the 50s, and we weren't fighting the police anymore, they weren't necessarily actively coming after us. They weren't protecting us either. So we had to fight for ourselves. We had to work very hard to gain acceptance in the community. And the slogan that was fairly popular at that time, "We're here where queer get used to it," in my mind, what that always meant was, I'm here, I'm different, I'm not here to hurt you in any way, I just want to kind of live my life and be left alone. So if you could accept that there's something a little bit different about me, but that I'm not after anything just other than just living my life, we're good. And it seems that what we have, I shouldn't say we, but what the community has morphed into more these days is we've become the bullies. I watched an interview with you quite a while ago. You had an interview, one of your many interviews with Milo, and he talked about something fairly similar with with the transgender stuff. I'm seeing legislation being passed in states where if you misgender somebody, you could, in New York, you could be businesses could be fined up to $250,000 for misgendering somebody. And I just don't understand that.
Yeah, so where do you think that came from with the gay community? Because I did start seeing it, even in the fight when I was on the more progressive side of things, so to speak. I saw this authoritarian bent, this need to label all the ideological opponents as homophobes and bigots and all of this stuff. And I just never felt that that's how you win people over. I think you win people over by living your life exactly how you're living it, hopefully showing them that you don't want what they have, you just want to live your life the same way. When do you think that really kicked in? Like, was there a moment that you were like, holy cow, something's really going on here?
You know, that's a really good question, and I'm not entirely sure when the shift happened. I know for myself, I started to back in around 2010, 2011. I took a critical thinking course, and this is going somewhere to your question. And I started to notice things about the media, and it was only around then that I started to really understand media spin and the bias that can come through with selective editing in text and in speech. And as far as when the gay community really started to shift, I think it was when the SJWs just started to kind of take over the movement. And I don't know that, and a lot of the old guard has either passed away or moved on and gotten on with their lives, but those that of my age that are left, that are just kind of want to be left alone to live our lives. We've earned our respect. We've won our fight. Can we move on and just have a fun life now? I'm wondering if there are people that just need something to complain about, or maybe they heard about the fight that we previously had. Did they feel like they missed out? I don't actually know.
Yeah, and such a great example of that need for oppression. I don't know if you saw this, but in West Hollywood, where I used to live, I'm in a different part of LA now, but they canceled the Gay Pride Parade, which is the biggest parade in LA, because they're going to have a protest instead, because they don't even want the gays celebrating. So in a weird way, do you feel a certain nostalgia for when things maybe weren't actually as good? Because there was, and I think this is sort of what Milo was talking about, there was a subversive nature to it. There was a over-the-top bawdy nature and drag queens and all of that stuff. Do you feel a nostalgia for that, even though there were so many other fights and legitimate terrible things that the community had to go through?
I do have a bit of a nostalgia for that. When I first started watching Milo's videos, and I just listen to the way that he presented himself. I mean, he's incredibly articulate, but he's also really campy and very over the top. He's almost a caricature, and I hadn't seen a gay man behave that way in so long that it was refreshing, and I was really, really glad to see him, because from he reminded me of sort of where we came from when words didn't hurt us, when we were stronger, and I think we've lost that. You know, I don't understand how people are continually getting their feelings so bruised over a word. It doesn't have to have power over you.
Yeah, you must have been watching that interview with me and Milo and going, man, that Rubin guy's pretty boring. I mean, for a gay dude, that guy. Whew.
I don't know, because I remember him teasing you about being married and being kind of settled and having a little bit more of a for lack of a better way to put it, a normal life. And I mean, I'm pretty settled. My partner and I have been together for 11 years, and if he would make fun of me too, you know, because my really promiscuous, clubby, multiple people on my arm days are over. I found a wonderful person, and we're settled and we're happy.
Yeah. And isn't that ultimately what it's all about? That we really do, I think all humans really do just want the same thing. We want to feel that we have some work that's validating, some good food and some good drink, and hopefully a family. And that really is the unifier, not all these scare tactics everyone's using to divide us. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So we only have about a minute left, but you had a couple other things you wanted to talk about. But I guess this is all couched in sort of censorship and the death of free speech. So as a guy that lives on a boat, is that part of the reason you're on a boat? You're just carving out your own little place to live life the way you want to because you see these trends.
That's a big part of it. Also, zombies can't swim, so we're ready for the zombie apocalypse.
Although I did see in what was it, the other Walk of the Dead, Fear of the Walking Dead, they somehow got in the water and they did flip a boat. I hate to tell you.
Ah, shoot. And quite honestly, we wanted to have some equity. We wanted to have a freer life, and we were both far too old to get involved in a mortgage and didn't necessarily want to be debt slaves and pay rent the rest of our lives either. So we own our home free and clear.
All right. Well, very cool. And if you make it to the LA harbor one day, I'll take you out for a drink. How about that?
That would be fantastic.
All right. Great. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and enjoy the rest of the day on the sea. All right. I've got Marcelo down in Brazil. Marcelo, how's it going?
Great. Great.
All right. I'm looking forward. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to talking to you because you've had an interesting journey politically, sort of as I did. So tell me a little bit about growing up. You were a far lefty.
Yes. So when I was 17, I had my first contact with politics, and I was a representative of my school in a citywide students association. And it was an environment pretty much dominated by the hard left. And I got connected with numerous factions of political parties. Most of them were from the Workers' Party, a party of Lula and Dilma, who became president, and basically ruined the country for 13 years. But
what does that mean down there? What does that mean when you're, this is 20 some odd years ago? What does hard left mean? Because I think it's hard for people to understand because it changes so much.
So hard left was there was the left in Brazil was a revolutionary left. Brazil was a Cold War battleground, especially after the Cuban Revolution. Brazil was the crown jewel, and we had a lot of turmoil in the 60s, a backlash which resulted in a right-wing inspired authoritarian regime for 20 years. And right then, when I was having my first contact with politics, Brazil was coming out of this dictatorship. So everything was, back on the table. And I once got invited by this Trotskyist group for a meeting, and I was curious. So I asked, has anyone read anything of Trotsky? Can I borrow a book? And nobody had read anything. So
right.
that was not for me. I once got invited to go to Cuba to go through guerrilla warfare training, to harvest sugarcane for the Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua, which of course I never did.
Right.
But I remained on the left for quite a while. On the ideological spectrum, I would campaign for candidates on the left, and I would vote for the left. But things changed when I started working for a bank, and I actually had some of my colleagues were officials in the government of the Social Democrat, who basically fixed the economy until the left, the hard left, took over again and ruined everything.
Right. It's funny. So you're saying the Social Democrats fixed the party and that they were more right than the leftists that you were in bed with. We think of them now, at least in the American context, if you say Social Democrat, it seems pretty far left. So then you kind of had your political awakening. What do you consider yourself now?
It's definitions are hard, especially cross borders. But I would say economically, I'm I would say not a libertarian, but closer to that. I'm a student of the Austrian school, but I'm more conservative when it comes to politics.
Yeah, and you've had a really interesting career too, because what you sent me here, I mean, you could basically take any job in the books. You've been in tech and marketing. You wrote a sitcom pilot. You were involved in some soccer stuff. I mean, you've done a whole bunch of stuff. So do you find that you can pretty much do whatever you want? If you're the average Brazilian citizen and you get an education, can you go ahead and do what you want with your life?
Well, an average Brazilian citizen is it's not much like that. But I would say I was very fortunate to have good education. I had a private education until high school, but then things are upside down in Brazil. So I went to a public university in Brazil, which tend to be the best ones, but the people who go to public schools in Brazil are the wealthiest, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah,
and then you did some schooling up at Stanford, is that right?
Yeah.
So you've been around.
That was a master's in business, and actually two of my professors were former Republican economists in the Council of Economic Advisors. That was actually what ultimately brought me to the right.
Yeah. So the two other things that I want to hit on that you wanted to talk about, that you were saying that your experiences of being part of the left down in Brazil and what's happened down there could be a good roadmap for what we have to deal with here in America. So what warning, I guess, would you give about the way you see things trending here in America?
Yeah. So it's kind of disappointing, frustrating to see that America is taking the path that Brazil has been, trailblazing, so to speak. So I remember watching Daniel Hannan in the CPAC in 2012, and it was a very inspiring speech about how the European Union could be taken as a glimpse into America's future. And Brazil can offer a much more radical view, not only of the full deployment of these prescriptions, but of their devastating effect. So, for example, Brazil has universal healthcare, universal education, taxation and regulation are insanely deeper and more complex than they are in the U.S., widespread income distribution programs, and comprehensive gun control laws. And none of this works.
Right. So what does that mean, like, in terms of health insurance? Like, how long, if you just want to see a doctor, you have to get just a basic procedure done. Like, how bad is it?
Yeah, it takes 6 months to get a simple exam in a public hospital. You have different types of public hospitals. I'm taking up basically the average public hospital, which is sort of a synonym of things that don't work. So if you want to say, oh, this doesn't work, you say that this looks like a public hospital. Brazil is 125th in overall performance in healthcare out of 191 countries, according to the World Health Organization. The U.S. is 37. So to trail the path of universal healthcare, there's a long way, and it's not a good
Right, and we think it's so screwy here, and of course could get better, whether you liked Obamacare or not, or whether you wanted the Trump thing or not. Of course, it could get better. So the other thing that I wanted to touch on is that you work sort of in the tech world now, and you wanted to talk about content and distribution, and I thought this was right up my alley because of everything I do and the way I get videos out there. My policy basically is I don't care where people view it or listen to it or download it, as long as they get my content as the creator. But you had mentioned some of the sort of frustrations that the curators and creators are having at the moment.
Yeah, so in the past, content was always bundled. Newspapers, television, you would read or watch the whole thing and pay for the bundle. Now people will actually go to the specific content that they want. But there's a sort of a tripod. It's the creator, distribution, and the consumer of any cultural product. And as I see it, this tripod, what's going on now with the YouTube demonetization actually breaks this balance. And what I think is happening now is that Hollywood had the saying that content is king, but in the background and then in the backstage, they would say content is king, but distribution pays the king's mortgage. So actually, who decided what people actually see is distribution. And now internet changed this dramatically. And the Netflix model, for example, they're not moved by box office; they're moved by analytics. So it's a much deeper, much more complex understanding of what people actually like. And the fact is that these curators who worked as gatekeepers of information, of culture in general, they're very frustrated. Some people chose this career of being a journalist, of being in content production. They chose this career because of this power. They're losing it. And it's not only Hollywood and the mainstream media. It's political commentary, guys like you, or even Silicon Valley venture capitalists who are disrupted by crowdfunding.
So what do you think that guys like me can do? I'll make this a little bit of a business therapy session because, we do see the spigots turning against us. There was this flow of information. We could all get on YouTube, Facebook, Yahoo, and everything, and Twitter and everything else, and put our content however we wanted to get it up there. And now we see, as you mentioned, the demonetization, changing algorithms, all of this stuff. As a creator, what do you recommend I do to make sure this thing stays afloat properly?
I don't think there's an ultimate solution or anything that's ready at this point. But I don't think it's hard to imagine that there would be in the near future a solution that would fix this tripod. So when I'm watching television, so it's free-to-air television, there's this tacit understanding that I get this for free because I'm hit by advertising, right? But when I watched something, and YouTube is a platform, so for me, it's like I'm going directly to the content creator, but I'm not. So if this advertising piece is missing, I think that people, even though people are used to watching things for free or getting things for free in the internet in general, I think people will be more inclined to pay for pay for content ever more in the future. And micro payments is probably the way to go.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're doing. I think that's what we're doing on Patreon with micropayments. People just paying for content as they see, and if YouTube won't monetize us, or if it takes a dive, we'll figure out some other things.
There's a difference. In your case, for example, people go to Patreon and help you. They donate. They're helping sort of a cause, but they're watching with no connection with the payment. Mm-hmm. I think in the near future, there's going to be a platform that actually connects how people enjoy and how people consume content with monetization.
Yeah. All right. Well, I could easily do another hour or two with you just on this. I may have to hire you to be a business consultant. I know you got a big job down there, but we'll talk. I'm on with Noah in Israel. Noah, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So, we got a couple people that requested to be on from Israel, and I think the tough one about this is I feel like every time you see an Israeli, at least from an American perspective, it's as if you are going to now represent your entire country because it's so small. Do you feel that sometimes?
Yes, we do. I think every Israeli that speaks with someone abroad feels as if he represents Israel, even though in Israel we're very different.
Right. There's diversity there. All right, are you ready to represent your country then?
I hope so.
We shall see. Okay, so before we get into some of the questions you want to talk about, tell me a little bit about yourself. You're in the Galilee, which is an interesting spot to be in, and you have a couple of daughters, I think. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm in the Galil, in the north of Israel. I have 2 daughters, 4 years old and 1 year old, and I'm graduating industrial engineering very soon. What else?
Yeah, well, what's it like to live in the Galilee? You're sort of at the border of Israel, Syria, and Lebanon.
I'm not that close to the border.
Well, for our purposes, it's pretty close. It's not. It's what, 10 miles or something?
I don't know how miles is in kilometers. But in the last war, we felt it in 2006, I think, maybe earlier. And but that's the only. Beforehand, we didn't felt anything. We're not near enough.
So for a country that we really only hear about in the international news when wars pop up, every 5 years you suddenly hear a lot about Israel, then you don't hear anything. What is it that you would want people to know from the things that have nothing to do with war?
Nothing to do. Well, everyone knows about the gay community in Israel, but in Tel Aviv. I think it's a nice place to tour. We're very warm. Our conception of you is if you're cold.
Right.
You and the Europeans are colder than us.
Right. I'm doing okay though, right?
Yeah, I think so, but probably you're more polite than most Israelis.
Than most Israelis, yeah. So you're a graduate student right now, and you wanted to talk a little bit. You want to talk a little bit about academia in Israel versus the United States, right?
Yeah. You have all the politically correct. First of all, our students are starting older because we have mandatory military. Most of the students enter university, and we don't have anything in. It's just in university. It's like in minimum of 20, 21 after they served in the military. So they had responsibility in the military, and they're a bit more mature, most of them. They are becoming a bit more whiny since I did my first degree.
Right.
But they are more mature, I think, and all the politically correct. It wouldn't work in Israel because we're less polite in any case. And I don't think it works. when I tell my professors what happened in the US, they don't believe me.
So when you talk about the polite parts, I've been to Israel a couple of times, and I always sense that it's like, it's such a small country in a tough neighborhood that everyone's just talking very fast. They drive very fast. I think it's like one of the top countries for car accidents. Like there's just like an intensity there, I suppose,
no
because
one would say, but the car accidents are usually the minorities. It's not the Jews. It's usually Arabs.
What do you think the reason for that is?
Education, probably. I think no one would say almost no one would say out loud that it's the minorities that have most of the accidents. So if you don't address a problem, then you don't know it. But
interesting.
I've never heard an argument. The car accident rate.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've never heard car accidents linked maybe to some socioeconomic stuff. The other thing that you wanted to talk about was Israel in relation to Trump now. He seems to be pretty pro-Israel from what I can tell.
We have a left and a right, but it's different from yours. Our left it's like generally left thinks we need to leave the Palestinian territories, right thinks we need to stay. That's the general idea. And the reasons for staying or leaving is very different. It doesn't have to be the same. Many of those that wants to stay wants to better the life of the Palestinians by making them part of our country because they think will be better for them. People that want to leave maybe doesn't want their best intentions.
Wait, that's fascinating. I've never heard that before. So you think some people on the left that want to leave, say leave the West Bank, their intentions are not good, you think?
Some of them, the intentions are good. I, for example, I'm considered a bit left. I want to leave the Palestinian territories, but my intentions, I don't think it would be so good for them. I think they're going to probably kill one another when we leave. I just don't want the trouble. I want my people out of there. Gaza is shooting missiles at Israel, the Gaza Strip, but the missiles cause less harm than a suicide bomber.
So in a weird way, you're saying you would trade the suicide bombers for the missiles?
For missiles.
Yeah, that's
in a way. There is a problem about living, and I can understand it because there will be missiles, and the kids near these areas have post-traumatic disorder, and it's a problem. And I don't want the kids to have post-traumatic disorder, but I don't think we should stay there. They don't want us there, and I generally don't think we should stay there.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be more deaths over there if we leave.
So as someone that believes that, now you guys left Gaza. There's not one Jew or Israeli in Gaza. It obviously, unfortunately, didn't bring peace. One of the things you wanted to talk about was some of the misconceptions about Gaza, that there's actually parts of Gaza that are very nice. They've just opened up this massive shopping mall and some other things. Can you tell me about that?
It was a report in our news that they just opened a modern shopping mall in Gaza. And the materials we let in, we have a lot of trucks coming in every day over there. Most of the material is for building tunnels, not to improve their lives. And when we left, there was very beautiful Jewish houses and farms and everything over there. And everything that was left, they destroyed.
Yeah.
And instead of living over there, I don't know.
So So what do you think is sort of the future for the peace camp in Israel? Because I suspect if you said you're a little bit to the left, so my guess is that you're probably not a huge Netanyahu person. Is there a peace camp left, or is the left just sort of burned in Israel because when they've made offers, it just hasn't been picked up on?
I think there is a peace camp. The problem with when there was Obama ruling, then president in the U.S., then we felt attacked by him, and feeling attacked, I think it made people more leaning to the right, and to be more defensive. Trump, it's funny because the left, the ultra left, I don't know how to call it in Israel, because it's not the regressive left of yours.
Right.
They think he's the devil. Our right thinks he's the Messiah, I think.
Right.
And the thing is, both of them translate what he says wrong. When he met with Netanyahu, they thought that he said that we can do whatever we like with the Palestinians. And actually, I read what he said, and he said that if both sides agree on it, he doesn't care if it's one state or two states.
Right.
And the translation to Hebrew from the right and the left was, well, he gave us a free hand to do anything. But Netanyahu knows it's not the case. He knows very, very good English. So I don't know who did the translation about it.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. It goes to some of the things that I'm going to be talking about with people from all over the world today about like a distrust in the news. Because of course, Netanyahu speaks perfect English. I think did he go to Yale or something? I mean, he's absolutely perfectly fluent in English.
He studied in the US, I don't know where.
All right, I am on with Ermek in New York from Kyrgyzstan. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing well as well. Let's start with what I think is the more interesting part of those two places. Kyrgyzstan, you even say that to people. They don't know that that's a real place.
Yeah. Actually, even New York Times doesn't really know
that. There's a lot of things that the New York Times doesn't know. But what do we need to know about Kyrgyzstan?
Well, it's a former Soviet country. So, yeah, with all the consequences of it, I guess. It's a majority Muslim country. It's also considered like a democratic island of Central Asia. Yeah, it's generally like just a Central Asian country. Kind of cultural mix of everything.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I thought was so interesting about your submission here, because you wrote, I'll loosely quote you, you said, "I'm probably an awkward dream of American Democrats, but I'm not a Democrat. I'm an asylee from Kyrgyzstan, which is part of the former Soviet Union in Central Asia. So I'm somewhat Asian, somewhat Turkic, and somewhat Russian, racially and culturally." That is a mix that I think would have a lot of people confused for the people that are obsessed with racial and ethnic mixes.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So yes, we are kind of Turkic because like our heritage is kind of Turkic, and we're kind of raised Russian, and culturally we're kind of Russian. But as you can see, probably we kind of look Asian as well.
Right.
So kind of mixed.
Yeah, and when did you come to the States?
I moved to the States in 2010.
So yeah. Tell me what that's like as a, you were in your, I guess, upper teens at the time or how old are you? Yeah, you were about 20 or so, right?
Yep, exactly.
And what was that like to move to the States?
Well, it was a different experience. I've been to the States before that, actually, when I finally moved to the States. Yeah, it was a different country. It was a really different kind of society, so it was really interesting, like culturally and demographically, first of all, because like you could see, especially since I moved to New York, and it's like all these different ethnic groups, and they're all so different. And
how do you like being in New York, where there literally is everybody from every walk of life?
Yeah, it's actually certainly it's the best city I think in the world. I've been to 38 states in the country, but I find New York is one of the really coolest places to live. Indeed.
Wow, why have you done so much traveling? Is that work related?
It was just for work, and yeah, like mostly for work. And I used to work for like different companies, and we used to travel, and everywhere from like deep south, from Louisiana and Mississippi to like New England and Maine and Florida and stuff like that. It was really interesting.
Very cool. Well, this is exactly what the American dream is. Someone coming here and finding work, hopefully building a life that they're happy with and proud of. One of the things that you wanted to talk about was that you see Trumpism as a middle-class revolution, sort of, or at least a counter action to a lot of stuff that was going on. Can you explain that?
Yeah, definitely. So in my opinion, actually, whatever is happening to Trump and like all that movement that's behind Brexit and Le Pen in France and Trump, of course, is the situation, like, it's basically what typical kind of like white middle class has gotten for past 20 years with all this like like outsourcing of jobs and different kind of things, and like different development of like computer systems and like technology. And I do not blame them, but I think that if you can actually look at it deeper, like you can see it's mostly frustration with that kind of loss of opportunity and kind of like loss of, how to say, like feeling of the future. Like, and all this stuff was like, I don't know, not liking immigrants or not liking Muslim. In my case, like in my opinion, is basically, it's just a result of actually not really liking the whole development, like, and the course of history that's going.
Yeah.
And
so do you think that's really like an education thing? Like if we had educated these people properly for other jobs, as some of the jobs that they were having, coal mining, that sort of thing, as that was sort of being phased away, if we had educated them properly to be in more high-tech jobs or whatever else there is, that maybe it would have not turned out the way it did?
Oh, maybe yes and maybe not. Because if you think of, like, imagine someone being like 30 and, well, basically his like teenage were 10 years ago, and no one could actually predict 10 years ago what kind of jobs would be needed like now and what type of jobs are going to be needed in 20 years from now. So I think no government could really actually like educate properly. And for someone 30 years old, so past 30, like closer to 40s, it's kind of like it's more of just inability to learn. Like, I do not think that how, like, I don't even see perspectives how we can actually re-educate them or give them some skills in terms of when they're actually settled down already. So they're thinking about their retirement and stuff like that. And how, in this case, we can just all of a sudden just give them new skills. I don't see
what do you think? Do you have an answer for that then? If you can't give a certain amount of them new skills, what do you do? Any thoughts?
My personal actual opinion is that I think what's lacking in the society today, in the U.S. society, is partially like lack of trust, inability to actually listen to each other. So people on the coast kind of like just do not even listen and do not even want to understand what the concerns of the middle class Americans are. And the same type thing goes from the middle class to the coastal regions, you know, and they're just not able to really understand and trust each other. And if they're not able to trust, they will never be able to actually come up with solutions. And I think that's the only problem. Like, we need some leadership that actually can put the country together, not put it apart, not like us against someone else kind of situation.
So speaking of that, if I was to listen to some of my friends on the left, they would say what an anti-immigrant nation we are and how unfair we are to people that come here and to minorities and all of those things. So as someone that came here at about 20 years old that clearly is doing good stuff and traveling and has a good job and all that, has there been any negativity attached to your experience here?
I do not really think. I think on the basic level, maybe sometimes and somewhere. But it's more of like, it's not real, like, I do not really believe in systematic racism, like, that's for sure. I don't think it really exists. I think if it happens on like a basic level somewhere in the supermarket or something, that's something that you just live with. There's no problem with that. I think like on the systematic level, I feel actually kind of privileged being with the backgrounds I have, like, and having this like opportunities to take versus, I don't know, someone from some mid-state coming to New and not even being able to expose to like different cultures that are here, you know, and opportunities.
Yeah, that really flips it on its head, that you feel privileged as someone that has your background and that's new to this country versus somebody that doesn't get the skill set as you were talking about earlier, and that would struggle to do what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, one of the big reasons why I believe that's a like kind of middle-class counter-revolution. Because in my opinion, people like me actually have more opportunities than someone from like mid-state or someone from like like racial, like African American suburbs of Detroit. You know, I think that yes, we do indeed have lots of more opportunities.
Yeah. So one of the things that you wanted to talk about was liberal dictatorship. Now, people know my frustrations with the left, and that I separate the left from liberalism and all that. And I think in your comments, you do make that same distinction. But you see a lot of worrisome stuff happening with this group of people right now, right?
Oh, indeed. I think like left liberals, and I want to just point out that I say left liberals versus like European liberals. Left liberals, I think they have all the aspects of what's considered religion. It's more of like a belief, and I just believe it, and I will not accept any other opinion, and I will not tolerate it. And that's like what I've like I really didn't see it that much, like in college, and I went to college here in the city. But like it certainly exists, like this concept of where people just do not accept any other opinion, and it's just me or that's it. And
yeah,
not having even trust, and it's going back to the trust that I told about before. It's just inability to even listen and accept. And we all have the same values. We all want the country to prosper and people to prosper. I do not think that people on the right do not want like help poor people. You know, it's just we think in a different way how we want to. Like we think differently how we want to help them, and that's what maybe left cannot really understand. And they're just not able to. And they're
so a perfect segue then is to the other issue you want to talk about, which is sort of the inability to have an honest conversation about Islam. And you've been sort of intimately involved in this. Can you talk about that for a sec?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was actually interesting kind of idea that I had myself, because in Kyrgyzstan is a country that's kind of secular. More of a Russian, with more of Russian communist, like secular influence, facing the realities of like Islam, going into the society of Kyrgyzstan. And most of my friends and most of the like educated, let's say like educated people in Central Asia really oppose this Islamic kind of idea as something being anti-nationalistic, like anti-Kyrgyz, for example, being something like pan-Islamic that wants to destroy our culture. At the same time, when someone on the alt-right, like, I don't know, Milo Yiannopoulos or Trump, say something about Islam, we kind of take it really defensive. And we all of a sudden turn into like advocates of Islam. And it's really interesting. And I think, what happens to me, and that makes me feel sometimes that maybe it's nothing to do with Islam, it's more with our feelings and with our inability to trust each other again.
Yeah.
And just have an open conversation, you know?
So is that really the answer, that to just have the open conversation? I think you know you have me in that corner. But is that really your answer when it comes to these hot button issues, but especially Islam? And someone would look at you and think, what does he know about Islam? Or what can he say about Islam? You know, if they just looked at you, they wouldn't understand. But yet you have experience, you know, you have life experience dealing with some of these ideas.
No, indeed, and I think that's what's actually lacking, like having people that are able to talk to each other, and from different spectrum, having someone from and that's why I was amused was a conversation between Bill Maher and Milo Yiannopoulos when they spoke to each other, and they're like from opposite, like completely opposite spectrum of political spectrum, and they were able to talk to each other. And they were able to find common ground. And it seems like people are just today are completely in their kind of boxes and unable to just go over and think and speak to someone who are not like them, you know?
Well, on that note, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I'm on board a lot of the ideas you're talking about, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.